NASA, Russia, women. Oh my! Stay tuned.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
That beat still throws me off that they had it at the end, yo.
It's still awesome, though. It's still awesome. Welcome to the after show for all mankind. We're covering episodes 1 and 2 tonight for the Red Moon and He Built the Saturn V. We're talking Russia beating down the American dream. Werner Von, good or bad? I'm not so sure yet. And of course, women take the lead. We're also doing our news, men be raging. You guys, I'm so excited for that one. And our special segment, which is just totally inspiration. I love it. And of course, our top 3 and predictions. But before we get into it, my name is Tatiana Marisa. And my co-host, so much fun. I have a Crystal. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic.
I'm excited.
Me too.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good panel.
It is.
And I have Tara.
Guys, I'm here. It's me, Tara Erickson, ready to talk space.
You guys, I kind of think that we're space experts, so watch out for our facts and knowledge. I'm just telling you.
Right.
But this show was a great introduction to space exploration and the space race, and I think it's a very, very different and cool interpretation of what happened actually in American history. Just with a really big spin.
Yeah.
What did you think, Crystal? What did you think of the first 2 episodes?
At first I'm not going to lie, it was tough. It was tough watching the first episode, but once I got into the second episode, it really started to take off. I think most new shows are kind of like that, right? It takes a little while to kind of get momentum. And thankfully, it happened within the second episode.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the show's going to bring. It didn't have very good ratings online, which it was surprising. Tomatoes, I think, gave it like 6 or 7 out of 10, which I thought was really, really surprising. It just seems such a sophisticated show. I would think that it would have gotten a little bit more, but we shall see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the ratings. I try to make it a point not to look at the ratings because I always feel like I don't agree with them sometimes.
Right, true.
So I
agree too.
Steer clear.
Yes.
Yeah. Tara, what'd you think?
I loved it. Margot made it for me in the
Right.
first episode. She's a badass woman. I'm into badass women. Women are cool. She really was the character that stood out to me specifically through episode 1 and 2. Just the fact that she sets up a bedroom in her office and keeps it a complete secret.
Dedication.
If you just want to see how to turn your office into also a sleeping space, but a good one, watch this show.
Right.
Just watch this for that, and then
So
you
crazy.
could leave it behind if you don't like it.
Right, tiny homes.
Telling you, there's good stuff in here.
It's good stuff. I'm going to take that away.
It's
That's
so funny because I
watch it.
literally, when I met you today, we just met each other today, guys. I literally was like, oh, she reminds me of her. You totally remind me of her.
Margot?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Even the accent.
That is a
Yeah.
huge compliment.
Dude, I'm
'cause
winning
Margot's badass.
tonight.
That's good. That's good. Well, ladies, I really want to jump into it. Now, I'm going to be mushing episodes 1 and 2 together because there's so much to cover. So I feel like it's impossible to just break it up into 1 and 2. So I'm just going to cover these topics and we'll kind of smush things into these topics. So first of all, we have Russia beats the American dream. So obviously we know in reality that this did not happen, but Russia made it to the moon first. So they won the space race, and Nixon is president in 1969, and he is pissed beyond belief, right? And he wants somebody to blame. And basically America is like the laughing stock of this space race. And he thinks that people are laughing at him and his presidency and all of that. And this really sets the stage for the American dream. Okay. You have the main character who we focus on, for the first episode, pretty much the most, is Ed and his wife. And they're driving these crazy American muscle cars.
So cool.
All the astronauts have them. And, you know, they're pissed because they didn't make it to the moon. And so they all race in their, you know, crazy American cars to the local pub, you know, where they all just get wasted, you know, and it's just, then they go home to their wives, and their wives are like primped and proper. And it's just, it's totally the American dream realized. And I think that they spent a huge amount of time really focusing on that. What did you think, Crystal? Did you see the American dream there? Like, what kind of place did you think it had in
totally.
in this?
I was like, wow, there's a lot of white people. It just reminded me of like how TV used to be and like how America used to be. So I was like, that's a little scary, but I mean, it was cool. You know, it did bring me back to like what I would have thought that the American dream would have been, which is, like you said, muscle cars, beer, men, you know, being men and having the women take care of the children and, you know, set up barbecues and you know, have these women meetings, if you want to call it that. But yeah, it was everything what you just said. And it didn't disappoint in that, because I think that's, at least for me, I was sitting there like watching it and I was like, I wonder if that really was how it was back then. And I feel like it really was.
Absolutely.
It authentically felt that in that moment when I was watching it. So
especially with the fact that they are astronauts, so many people are looking to them,
right,
because to be an astronaut, you know, is part of the American dream. I feel like so they really set them up where they had to be picture perfect. You know, their kids, their wives, their backyards,
and their military too. So you think about that. You know, you think about military, and you think about how they're like, they kind of do the bro life, right? So it felt a little bro-y, but you know, it set it up perfectly. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, there's some people online, somebody quoted saying that they thought that it was like degrading, that they wrote this in, that the men would just go to the bar and get wasted. And I'm like, because they lost the race to the moon, and that's just reality. I feel like it would really hit home. I'm like, that's probably exactly what happened, even though, sure, there were writers on board. I think they stuck close to home, especially in regards to, I think the title of them kind of being in the bar, and the motto of it was that NASA stopped taking risks, and that's why we fell behind. And they could have grabbed that even though we were the first ones on the moon, there may have been a point even back then where we accomplished something and stopped taking risks. I feel like there's a lot here that is based in reality, even though there's writers behind it. So I think it had a very right place for this episode.
And it's interesting that you brought up that bar scene, because Ed basically is drunk and pissed, and he spills to the reporter that NASA has basically lost its balls, basically, and is lost its fire. And in doing so, he gets himself fired.
Right.
Everybody's pissed at him because he threw NASA underneath the bus. And I imagine that there's this brotherhood, like you were saying, Crystal, you know, that you don't go against your brotherhood, your bros,
Karen
before
said.
NASA. So, you know, it sucks. But I really like how Karen, you know, after Ed was basically fired or moved, either to a desk job or back to the Navy, Karen knows every detail of the different possibilities that could happen next. I mean, she broke it. I'm sure that he was thinking about it in his mind, but she broke it down. All right, well, if you go back into the Navy, then we're going to move here, and you'll probably be based here, and then you're going to take this job, and then you're going to... I mean, she had it all figured out. So I feel like she's like the real MVP in this relationship.
I was thinking about that too when I was watching it. I was like, that's probably what it used to be for them. Not to say it doesn't happen now, you know, but I feel like a good marriage isn't always like perfect per se, but maybe you're able to tell each other the truth about what's really going on and what's really happening. And I felt that, you know, that they had like this bond, even though they seem like almost like two magnets, you know, pushing against each other a lot of the times. But it was interesting to watch that, and you know, and going back to what you said about Ed being upset and spilling the beans to, you know, News Weekly. I think what it comes down to, and we realize later, is his guilt, you know, within himself. And I think a lot of men, they hold stuff in, you know, they're not really as vocal as us women are, right? We're like little hens. Sometimes we were like
some
talking.
Men.
Right,
some
right,
men.
some men. But based off of that time is what I meant. Sorry. You know, there was this like manhood, you know, muscle cars, like you said, and you know, this way of living, and you don't talk about it kind of thing. But I think, you know, it was set up really nicely in the relationship between him and his wife, and I really liked that. It really painted a picture of who they were, and then you get to see all the other couples, married couples, and seeing their dynamic, and you see the hierarchy in that too. What was that woman's name who kind of is like, okay, ladies, let's, you know, they called her the alpha. I think it was
what her name was,
I
but
wrote down
in
her
regards to like the lead women in here, or the wives, there's a quote in here that they say where it's like, if you choose to leave Gordo, you're leaving your entire life behind. And that's what any woman would say to any other woman in this show, that if you should choose to leave your husband, you're leaving your entire life, because all of the women's lives were dedicated to their husbands. So I think it was kind of their job to be severely detailed in regards to, if life changes, they know exactly where to go, where to take the family, and what to do. Because the men were very much like, not kept on leashes, but sort of like, I'm going to go play now at work. And then the women were like, okay, so like, what happens if there's a disaster? I'm going to have to deal with it.
And by playing at work, you mean like flying into space.
Totally.
And because that's
That's playing at work, man. That's a great. You're like coming up with blueprints. You're like, let's make a rocket. Let's train in G-force. I'm going to fly a jet plane. That's playing at work. That's a blast. I'm not saying it's not hard work and you don't have to be very intelligent, but it's play.
Right.
To me.
That's a great
least.
observation, because now that you said that, that like reminded me of when they were telling the guy to come down and like call his wife. Remember that part where they were asking him to come back?
Because he wasn't going to leave without his fellow
And so it goes
astronaut.
back to like the wife being, you know, the woman that's like leading, really is the one that's telling their husbands what to do.
I mean, I feel like the astronaut wives specifically, I feel like they keep everything together.
Right.
You know, the men are faced with impossible jobs and honestly could die at any mission. And so they kind of have to be ready if that happens, you know, especially because their husbands were at war first. And so because they were at war first, they're used to this. Am I going to see my husband again? He's gone for months at a time. You know, what is my next move in case this happens? Like, they kind of have to hold it down by themselves in case something happens, you know, and that takes a really strong person to do that, you know? So I think that is amazing. Talking about holding it down, we hold it down here at AfterBuzz TV. Can you tell us more about that, Crystal?
Absolutely. You guys here at AfterBuzz, we are so happy to be sharing our favorite shows with you, but we couldn't do it without you. You know, because of you guys watching and tuning in and commenting and subscribing and tweeting and all the array of different things that you do for us, we are able to be here and talk about shows that we love and really just share our, you know, passion, which is TV hosting and making content for you. So if you guys love this show, I would hope that you would subscribe. I believe the button should be below. But also, if you can give us 5 stars, if you find us on Spotify, you can follow us there. You can follow us on iTunes. Leave a comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you want to hear. And we would be happy to oblige. Well, most of it. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. And we are the ESPN of TV Talk.
And also like this video.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. So thank you very much for that. That was awesome, and we love to hear from our viewers, so that's amazing. I really want to get into episode 2 was basically all about one man, the Werner von Braun. I was like saying it 4 times fast so I could just say it correctly on the show. Werner von Braun, who is the German engineer that escalated the whole rocket business for the U.S., and he fled, and he even mentioned that he could give the blueprints to Russia, but he didn't, and he chose America to give it to. And that entire episode was extremely interesting. And there's so many layers to this because, you know, now that they made it on the moon after the Russians, but now they're like, it's not about who makes it first. It's just that we make it, right? And so even with that, the crash happened, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they still made it, and everybody was good, and we were successful. The U.S. was successful. But then it's then it turns into, okay, now we want to turn the moon into a military base, right? And now this is a race to see who can build a military base the quickest on the moon. And Werner von Braun is totally against that. And he's like, you guys, I've been through this before. He didn't mention that his weapons of mass destruction killed thousands of people, neglected to mention that, but he did say, I don't want to do this. And basically Nixon was like, you don't say no to the president,
right.
And who does he think he is? Let's get rid of him. And we have to be creative. So now they set up this entire, all these hearings, which is where Ed comes in. And they say, hey, you were demoted, right? Because you spilled all the beans and you said all the stuff. And so why don't we bring you in and you can tell us exactly whose fault it is, right? What did you think about the courtroom scene with Ed that was supposed to go in favor of nixing Werner von Braun?
I felt like Ed had a 90% chance in his head that should he tell the story that he chose to tell, he knew it would be difficult, but he would still have, even if it's a 1.5% chance at going to the moon. And that's all that Ed wants. Even if it takes 20 years, he knew that hearing would be his pathway to still be able to get back into NASA's good graces one way or the other. Even if it was more for the president, it's like, well, the president doesn't really put you in space if the director of NASA is not on board with you. So I think he made a smart decision, even though it really was shocking.
Totally shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So you thought that he made the decision knowing that he would probably go into space again?
I think that he thought that there was a 1.5% chance, and he was willing to take that chance because that is literally all Ed cares about.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe his wife and his kid. That's like a maybe. His career, his love is being in space and wanting to go to the moon, and that's just where your heart lies. And I think he's willing to take that risk, even if it's a low one.
See, I thought that he basically gave up all hope of going to the moon, and that's why he was so honest.
He felt defeated.
Yeah,
I
because
could see that.
if he was gonna go to the moon again, then he would do what the president wanted, which was to blame everything on Werner von Braun.
Right.
But he took the high road, essentially.
Yeah, I think his wife played a big part in that because you see that he looks at her, right before they go into the courtroom, we see them at home having a conversation about it. And I think they really, she keeps him grounded and she reminds him of who he is. And I think that in that moment, he had to make that decision. I think she left it up to him probably, right? Saying, it's up to you, but this is the path, like you said, giving him which road do you follow? And if you do choose that road, be prepared to, deal with the repercussions of that. He had already messed up and he had already pissed off Deke. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think he was going to do that. I didn't think he was going to go and snitch on von Braun. But I think, of course in the back of his mind, I'm sure he thought, you know what? I'm losing either way, because I think he would have, if he had snitched on him and made it about von Braun being the bad guy, then I feel like Deke would have probably still not brought him in. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't speak the truth, then it was like he was cheating himself. And so I think he had no choice but to kind of find a middle ground, which he did. He kind of played the politician in this because he gives a story about von Braun telling him not to do it, but then he says, I could have done it. So he's saying, I was told not to do it, but I could have done it, and I chose not to do it. But if you think about it, when you're commanded to do something and you're in the military, you're supposed to follow what your command tells you. So I think he won in this, and I think he knew that he could win in this.
Absolutely.
And so, it was like a gamble, but it was a really good one. Mm-hmm. And I really liked it. I really was happy with the choice that he made.
Me too.
I wasn't expecting that.
It was very American hero type.
Right.
And it was refreshing.
It was
to see, especially because of all the politics involved. Right. And he didn't realize that Nixon was trying to get rid of von Braun. And because that's the underlying thing, right? So since that didn't take, Congressman Sandman, right. Congressman Sandman, brings von Braun to speak, And Von Braun, so, I fell in love with his speech. I was like, I am for you.
I wrote it down.
Yeah,
I wrote it down.
Amazing. And I was like, yeah, I believe in what you want for the moon and, reaching the stars. And, I was totally caught up in it. And then they bring up his past. So it turns out that he was part of the Nazi crew. And that he made mass weapons of destruction and killed a bunch of people in Europe. And that concentration camps were actually building his weapons, and because they're concentration camps, nobody's fed, everybody's neglected, they all died building his weapons. And so this horrible truth is brought out, and I feel like they just pounded it even more so because they brought visuals and just made it hit really hard, and he had nothing to say for it. So what do you guys think? Because he has a discussion later with Margot about whether or not he knew that this was actually going on. And he basically said, life is hard decisions, and if I stood up for what was right, I wouldn't be alive today and my creations would have never lived. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's a good sacrifice? Is he evil now? Because he's evil in the eyes of America, and they basically just discarded him after he helped us get to the moon.
I think it plays into what Ed did, right? Ed, he admitted to his wrongs, and I think that if he had maybe admitted to his wrongs, I don't think they would have instated him, but there would have been a little bit more respect. So it was such a hard thing to watch, honestly. I'm still so torn because it's like, yes, he did bring this amazing thing. So what does that say about America now? Should we just wipe out everything that he taught us? Because now we are a product of whatever he learned. Now we're a part of this. Mm-hmm. So we're saying like it's all good too by just like keeping all his information. But we wouldn't have gotten it had he not done what he did.
We look like the hero now though, right? Because we exposed his skeletons and then did away with him because we don't associate with that.
Isn't that American?
All right.
But it's difficult because you have to take in his context. When people are young, they make decisions in regards to, I am young and I'm surrounded by a bunch of Nazis. It's really difficult if you or I or anyone in this room was 16 would be like, excuse me, I'm not going to build rockets for you anymore and I'm just going to go home now, that the 3,000 Nazis surrounding you would probably kill you on the spot.
Right.
The context is super important. I understand that it was difficult for him back then. It's an actual impossible task to try to employ that type of knowledge to a 16-year-old to figure out how to get out of a situation building rockets for Nazis.
Right.
Maybe if he was older, I'd be like, all right, man, like you're no good. He did know what was going on, but again, he was so young. I really can't blame him. And then pulling up the picture, he looks young. It's just like, dude, there's context to everything.
Right.
And it's important to view that.
Right.
Totally.
And it's not
agree.
so black and white, like she said. And it's hard too because you know that he's a good man. He's a good man.
I feel like he is.
He is.
I mean, his character, from what I've seen, he is a very good man. But in his words, progress is never free. There's always a cost. Mm-hmm. And those words that he left Margot were piercing.
Right.
But there's not. I mean, him giving Margot a ruler. She became the very first woman in mission control. That happened before this trial. Mm-hmm. He's basically a fill-in father for Margot. That was an emotional moment. You realize their relationship. And then after this, there's a confrontation because this fill-in father, she didn't know his background, that he worked for Nazis. And progress does come at a price, meaning Margot has to sleep at the office, in and out. She can't go home and sleep at home like the other dudes because if she does, she's not going to have a one-up or even an opportunity to beat them at their own job because she is simply a woman. Mm-hmm. So progress does not come without a price in any regard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, yeah. I definitely agree.
Hard things.
It is hard.
Guys, hard.
It really got me thinking a lot because it's true, like what he was saying. But at the same time, it's like it's so wrong, But then like he said, he's like, I would have been dead if I didn't do what they asked me to. So it was like he chose his life. Does that make him a bad man?
Mm-hmm. I like how Margot was like, you don't know that. You would have been alive.
Right,
I'm sure
right.
like any normal person would be like, I'm sorry, have you met a Nazi?
Right.
Did you meet Adolf Hitler?
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure you weren't even alive. So, and I was there.
Exactly.
You know? So it's very interesting. Talking about Margot, I really want to step into women taking the lead.
Woo.
In this, because this seems to be what this is very focused around that I love. And I want to start with Margot because she is the first woman to get into Fido and to be like in the bullpit, and she really knows her stuff, and I think she's really proven herself, and so that is like a huge leap for women to be there, and the men, you know, they give her a hard time, and you know, I don't think that they have, even though they played that joke on her and they were like, oh, they do it to everybody, I don't think that they have fully accepted that a woman is working alongside them, you know, which sucks. I
think it's just because she's better at the job than they are.
It's because she corrected that dude.
Yeah, who couldn't figure it out after like
He was-
15 long minutes, and Margot knew the answer the entire time.
I mean, he was sweating bullets. But what really hit me is when she went into the interview for that position with Gene, her boss, and he's like, you know, what do you do for fun? Like, what do you do to loosen up or whatever? And she's like, and he's like, no, I just want to make sure, you know, you're not going to run off and start a family, are you? And I was like, okay. All right. And she's like, oh, no, I mean, because she's passionate about her work, and that's amazing. And I'm sure she hasn't even thought about kids yet, you know. And she's like, oh, no, I don't know. And he goes, it's okay. Not every woman is cut out to be a mother.
I want to smack him.
Right? Like, I would be like, I don't even want the
Straight
job.
up, like,
Yeah, that's so incredibly insulting, you know. And I think it's just a glimpse into, at that time, the kind of placement that women were supposed to fit into. And if you didn't fit into that placement, then you weren't acceptable to be a mother or have children.
Right. If you had an opinion of your own, if you wanted to work, if you had a passion in life, you could forget about it.
Especially in NASA.
It's so crazy. So
You
could
know?
you imagine all the stuff that she went through to get to that position? You know what I mean? Like the hard work, sweat and tears. I mean, she, like you were saying, she has her bedroom in her office and she's hiding it. She truly is an inspiration. And I know that you said that you were inspired by her, but I really, really could just feel like this power, you know, watching her, because I realized like how far we've come. And, you know, we are truly lucky to be living, you know, in this day and age, because even though there's still a lot of progress that needs to be made, I mean, wow, I couldn't imagine being her in that place with all those men and her still holding her ground and just saying, no, this is what I want to do. And I came from Alabama and all I knew were these stories. And those stories are what brought me here. You know, that's someone with a dream, but not just a dream. She really put it into action. And I don't know how she does it.
She's proven herself wholly and completely.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, being in her position, then we witness the first woman on the moon is a Russian woman. What was her name again? It was Anastasia Belikova, was put into space. And that was a total, I didn't even see that coming when they were on the moon and she lifted up the visor and I was like, like, you know, that's awesome. So there's Russia again beating us. It's okay. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's part of the story, right? But it's leaps and bounds, you know, ahead of the U.S. I mean, they just got their first woman on Fido, and then here is Russia is like sending a woman into space. So I just think that's amazing. But also, who sees that is Aleta. Now we are introduced to Aleta because she lost her mother. And then they migrate to the U.S. And I feel like she is thrusted into this culture. You know, this poor girl has gone through so much, and her father only wants her to speak English, you know, so she's totally immersed in this. And I feel like he's trying so hard to get her into this culture, and she just doesn't want to, you know, understandably. It's a lot to adjust to. What did you think, Tara, about her adjustment, especially with her obsession with the fire, starting the fires. And
yeah, I felt like that was really interesting because they didn't really need to show the way that she was having a difficult time through family or who she's living with, or even showing her going to school or even out in the world. They really just did a simple thing of she wants to be in the fire is eventually what we find out. She's having issues with just letting a match burn and her burning herself, catching things on fire because she wants to live inside of it. All that does is shows us a really sweet metaphor in regards to her emotions. She's in a lot of pain. She lost her mom. She's in a country where she's not comfortable. She doesn't know a lot of people. Most people don't speak her language. It's an uncomfortable place, especially for a preteen. I couldn't imagine with the hormones combined with having a dead mom, also being surrounded by people you don't know. I might want to live in a fire too. So there's that, but it picks up here because I found it very inspiring that the dad tied it into, well, let's go take a look at a rocket, because what airs this rocket is gas and fuel and a lot of fire. And if that is something that interests you and you want to live within it, then you can actually make that happen in a way that will help the rest of the world, right, and that your mother would be very connected to as well.
Mm-hmm. He totally fueled that passion and energy that she had for fire and what could have been a really depressing state that she could have stayed in and put it in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to say what you were saying. He was mopping the hallway, and remember he looks at the picture of, the spaceship going up, and you see all the smoke and the fire. And so I love how the show uses different things to connect it back to, maybe something they're going to talk about later. I really love that about this show because a lot of good shows I feel like will do that symbolism, and there's a lot of symbolism throughout this entire 2 episodes.
And representation matters,
right?
Because when she's going through all of this, then that's when the first woman is put on the moon, right. And so she sees that it is possible for her as well. This is something that she can achieve. And I think it was my favorite part of the entire episode of episode 2 was after they put the woman on the moon. Karen is watching and she's like, no. Like, she shakes her head like, this is impossible. Because she's so used to order. This is women's place. This is where I know I am. This is where I'm comfortable. This is how it's supposed to be. And then you have Tracy, who got cheated on, who basically knows that her husband is cheating on her, but is convinced to stay with him. And she's like, yeah. Like, totally into it. So it's funny to see the 2 different reactions that we get from wives that are both wives of astronauts and in the same, mom club, astronaut mom club, where you're supposed to be Stepford wife. So I thought that was my favorite thing to see. So with that, I know we're talking a lot about it, and we just zoomed past it, and there's still so much I want to say, but we can't.
There's a lot.
There's so much. But I want to go into our special segment. We have a very fun special segment, our hero's journey. Yes. Oh, I love it. That's perfect.
Nice.
I love that. So basically, guys, the special segment is based off of something inspirational. Unfortunately, it's sad that Von Braun's ended up doing what he did, but I really liked what he said, so I'm going to read it anyways. It was a quote that he said. It's kind of long, actually. I'm sorry. We cannot allow fear to drive us from our purpose. What we are seeking is key to our future, and we are expanding the mind of man, extending this God-given brain and these God-given hands to their outermost limits, and in doing so, everyone will reap the harvest. And then, of course, the Sandman came along and said, your leadership created a culture of caution. He said, yes, of course, we were more cautious. Lives were lost. We test, we retest, and we prepare. Because unlike the Soviets, we care about the lives of our astronauts. You must understand you must understand, Congressman, that this is not the end of the race. It's simply the first stage. We must keep our eyes to the future, as Mr. Armstrong so amply put it. We pick ourselves up and we go back to work. And the reason why I really like this, because I feel like this pertains to us, being here in LA and I think anybody really working towards their dreams and their goals. And I think it really hit home for me, because I feel like you can't allow your fear to prevent you from doing the things you want to do. And with a show like this, you could change people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pick yourself up, get back to work.
That's right.
Yeah, that was inspirational.
Just don't light things on fire.
Or, do.
Just get inside.
Do it safely. Get a fireplace or a barbecue.
Better have marshmallows.
Marshmallows, s'mores, I like it all. So next, why don't you tell us about I'm really excited to hear about this news.
Do this news and gossip, babies. Men be raging about this show. They're so angry. First off, guys, I took a little gander at the IMDb, and boy, oh boy, was it lit. Mostly with a 1 star out of 10, says Adober. Waste of time again, just a hate crime against men. A propaganda show against the men that made this country. Wow. Okay, next. Social messages with a side of space. So this guy gives it 3 out of 10. He says, if you want to see a space exploration themed social study, then this is your show. I watched the first 2 episodes, but by the end of the second, the propaganda was clear. Men are bad, even Nazis, and the space race should have been about women. No thanks. Okay, if you say men are bad and then follow it up with even Nazis, you're on the wrong side of the argument. Nazis, they were pretty bad. Okay, now next. Surprised they didn't change the title to Womankind? Getting real tired of this type of woman-strong media being constantly churned out as a sickening pace in this current climate. It's getting really ridiculous. Now, okay, here's the deal. Now, if there have been 560 people in space, only 65 women. Okay, the all-women spacewalk happened on October 10th, 2019, and that was the first time that women outnumbered men. So I think that the word you were looking for is more like progress, not ridiculous, because we're kind of now in 2019 just getting back to maybe possibly teetering back to where there's a balance between men and women, especially in regards to space. So maybe not ridiculous. So I asked somebody, she is Laura Seward Forsyth, what she thought about this. She's the founder of Astrolytical. She's a space professional, a scientist, and she's a future astronaut. And here's what she had to say. She said that this viewpoint still haunts space programs around the world, including within NASA. Women are still other when it comes to current spacesuits. Just a heads up, the spacewalk took longer because they didn't have any medium suits on hand because all of the suits are built for men. So they had to specifically ask people to get on top of it and build spacesuits that were made for the 2 women who were going to go on the spacewalk. That happened October 10th, as I said. Space hardware and tool design, medical studies, and leadership. For all mankind is striving to change the view that space is male. So I totally agree with that. Good words there, Laura. And also, a study showed that women are actually better suited for space because they're smaller and lighter and consume fewer resources. So if we had sent up women first, also they handle stress better, we would have gotten there faster, stayed longer, and it would have been chill AF. So take that, haters, and we'll see you on the next segment.
I love it.
That's my favorite one. Thank you, Tara.
Yes.
I can
You're
always
welcome.
count on you to be super real and genuine and bring in the knowledge. I appreciate that. I want to get into our top 3 space movies.
Yeah.
All right? Top 3.
Sorry.
We have Contact.
Yes.
That was yours,
Contact.
Crystal.
Yes.
Contact is a good one. Apollo 13, Tara.
Yeah, baby. Superb cast, Ron Howard.
right? Ron Howard, can't go
Jodie
wrong.
Foster in Contact.
Right?
Lady.
That was so good. And then The Martian was mine. I love that movie. First, I forgot that I saw it, but then somebody jogged my memory, and I was like, oh, yeah, that is really good. Let's talk about predictions. What do you think? I know we saw a snippet of what was going to happen in the next episode. What do you guys think?
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Yes. What do you guys think is going to happen next, Tara?
I can't say anything because I already watched the next episode.
Snap. Okay, no spoilers.
Duh.
No spoilers. I haven't watched it.
Okay, I haven't either, but I might have accidentally read an article that at the end of it decided to tell. It was talking about the 2 first episodes and somehow spilled into the third. So I can't give you a real honest prediction.
I mean,
So
my one honest that like not even based on the next episode. In watching the second one, I was like, oh man, I hope they try to send 3 women to the moon now because the U.S. is constantly trying to catch up. And my assumption was that the next episode is just like, I don't know, get women up there, whoever it is, just throw them up there. Let's get them up. We get time's ticking.
Yeah.
So you'll see. We'll see.
I thought all of the wives were going to flip flop, and I thought all the wives were going to be like, I'm going to be an astronaut, and then all the men would have to be home and deal with it. But I think just from watching that snippet of what's coming next in episode 3, we see that one of the wives is actually like, F you, I'm going to be an astronaut. And that's the wife that was cheated on. So it's going to be interesting. But there's definitely going to be some women going in space, some U.S. women going in space. So I think my prediction is we're going to see the hardships that they go through, training to do this, to see what kind of band they raggle together, to see the women that go into space. So all in all, guys, this is an amazing show.
Lots of space drama.
Lots of space drama. I love it. It's a fresh spin. I don't think anybody has done women in space, like, historically speaking. They've done different scenarios about aliens and stuff like that, but this is the space race, and I really like it. I really think it's a great fresh perspective.
Let's just hope that they don't bring in that woman. You remember that woman that was on the news that I guess she was someone who had gone to space or was going to go to space, and she wore the diaper. She went driving across the United States of America.
What? How did I miss this?
Oh, you know?
I think I missed it.
Oh, this is a true story.
What?
This happened maybe within the past 5 years.
Okay,
Got it.
Wait, you need to take that article, bring it next time.
I'll bring it next time.
Yeah, so
Yes,
we
I
can
will,
talk about
definitely.
it. Because that is something that I would definitely have to hear about. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, she went a little crazy.
Yeah. If you guys know about it, let us know. If I'm the
Leave
only
it
one
in
that's
the
in the dark.
comments.
Yeah, leave it in the comments.
We'll
Let us
read
know
'em.
if that's what it is. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us here at AfterBuzz TV. We will catch you next time. We're going to be covering 2 more episodes. Until then, we will catch you later.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.